Hi there, welcome to Craft Like Now. I'm Diane. Today I'm going to be making a 3-panel wedge card. I was inspired to make this card by Anne from Positively Papercraft. And I'm going to include a link to her video in the description. Please go see it and also see the video of the lady that she was inspired by. They make slightly different cards. I am today making a 5x7 horizontal card. For the base, I'm using 110-pound off-white cardstock from Joann Fabrics. I think it's their house brand. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'm also using pattern paper from an old pack that I've had for years now. I'm not sure it's still available. Probably not. It's called Fall Toile Cardstock Stickers and Embellishments. And this paper, which I may or may not use, is from an Anna Griffin Halloween Explosion card making kit. I don't know if I'm going to be using that. I'm using dies from Deco Cutting Dies by Stampendas. This set may still be available, I'm not sure. Also a set from Sizzix, framelits with stamps, and they're oval framelits. There's 10 dies in this set. I'm not using all 10. And then Momenta cutting templates. It's a 9-piece cutting set. Again, most of these are probably retired and not available, so I'm not even going to try to find links to them. But that's what I'm using for the cards today. Or at least I'm using some dies from each of those sets. And I'm using Thinking of You sentiment from an old Stampin' Up! Retired Hostess set called Warmest Regards. Very old, very retired. And for the card, this Fall Toile cardstock from Anna Griffin came with 12x12 sheets and 5x7 sheets. So I'm using the 12x12 sheet for the 3 panels, and I used a 5x7 sheet that coordinated with this cat embellishment that was in the set. And I used it to cut frames, and then I may use these strips. I don't know. So this was the 5x7 mat. This was from the 12x12 paper. Okay. To make the 3 panels for the 3-panel wedge card, you need, for this size, I mean, you can vary the sizes, but because my frame, my large frame for the front, is going to be 3 inches at its widest, I wanted the front panel to be slightly wider, so it's going to be 3 1/4. So in order to have the center panel be 3 1/4, I made the side panels 1 3/4 each. And to make that kind of card for a 5x7 base, I need a 5x9 sheet of pattern paper and 2 5x5 pieces of pattern paper. The pattern paper can be double-sided. This one happens to be solid on the back. It could have a pattern on the back. If you like the pattern on the back, all the better, because with this type of card that I'm making, you'll be able to see that pattern. So that is a really enjoyable thing, and I'll show you other cards that I've made where I've used the double-sided pattern paper. But let's just make the sympathy card right now. I'm going to grab my scoring board, and I'm going to score first the 5x9 sheet. I want this to be my front panel. So in order to do that, and you can change the scoring based on what you want to feature. If I wanted this to be my front panel, I'd probably score slightly differently. But for this panel, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch. And then remember, this is going to be 3 1/4. So normally, I would score it 3 1/2 for 3. I'm going to score it, I'm sorry, 1/2 inch plus 3 is 3 1/2, plus 1/4 is 3 3/4, right? Well, let's hope. So 3 3/4 then 4 1/4, 4 3/4, and then we need 3/4, so that's 5 1/2. No, we need 1/4 and then 3. So that's going to get me to 8. That makes sense because I need an inch left over, and I scored 8 1/2. Okay, so we scored at 1/2 inch, then 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 8, and 8 1/2. Now, the 5-inch cards, I have to decide which side I want to feature. And it's a little bit, you sort of have to do a little bit of visualizing to see what's going to be on the bottom, what's going to be on the top. I think I want to feature this part. And on this card, ideally, the bird won't be in it, but, you know, I don't know that there's anything that I can do about this bird. It's going to feature somewhere. I think if I make the wedge, okay, so this is going to be my right hand wedge, and this is going to be my left hand wedge. So for my right hand wedge, I need to score at 1/2 inch, and then this is going to be 1 3/4. So 1 is 1 1/2, and 3/4 is 2 1/4. And then I need another 1 3/4, so that's 3/4 is to 3, and then at 4 inches, and 4 1/2. Okay, so 1/2 inch, 2 1/4, 4 inches, and 4 1/2. And that is going to be my right hand wedge. This is going to be the left hand wedge, so I have to score it the opposite. If this was non-directional, this is just polka dots and it could go in any direction, you could score them both the same. But since it is directional, we need to make sure that we're scoring it correctly. So for this part, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 3/4, 4 1/2, and 4 1/2. So again, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 3/4, 4 1/2. And then we're going to fold these to form a wedge. What do I mean by that? You're going to fold a mountain fold on either side of this panel, a valley fold here, and a mountain fold here. This mountain fold is going to be glued to the side panel here. And so this wedge is going to sit on the card like this. And then this one is going to be just the opposite. Mountain fold on either side of the front panel, valley fold here, and another mountain fold here that will come together here. So we're going to have 2 wedges, and then, oops, we're going to have 2 wedges like this, and then a panel on the inside across the front of the cardstock. I hope I'm in frame when I'm doing all of this. I hope this will make sense. I really hope. The reason why I'm not folding it yet is because I want to make sure that I have my frames placed correctly on these. And so I'm going to try to find my frames. Here they are. So the frame is going to cover this portion of the wedge, and on this one, the frame is going to cover this portion of the wedge. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and on the center panel, we have a mountain fold here, mountain fold here, mountain fold here, mountain fold here, and then a valley and a valley. Well, a reverse mountain, whichever way you're looking at it, right? So the center panel is going to look like so. 2 wedges on either side, and the center panel here. And on the center panel, I want to make sure that I die cut my frame out of here, like so. The easiest way to do this and make sure that everything is centered is to take a very thin bead of glue. I'm using Zig 2-way glue. You can use whichever glue you find most reliable for this type of thing. White glue works just fine. I just find it's a little too watery and messy. But what you want to do is you want to just stick to the very, very edge of your frame. You don't want to glue the center because you're going to be die cutting that center out. And then you want to center. The reason why I have this folded is because sometimes it's hard to see the where the folds are when the paper is open. So this way I can make sure that everything is centered. And then I will be placing later, I will be placing my sentiment across the bottom of this panel, but not yet. Okay, so this is done, and then I'm going to do the same thing with my 2 wedges. Again, just a very thin bit of glue around the outside of the frame. Sticking. Do the same thing here. It's nice to put them side by side so that you can get them roughly at the same height as well. Okay, and now we get to do a little bit more die cutting. So I'm going to put away my scoreboard and bring in my trusty old Big Shot. Oops. And now we're going to unfold our papers, and we're going to take the inside of the frame, which in my case is this die here. If you want, you can use washi tape to hold this down. I usually don't bother. I just, oops, just cross my fingers and hope for the best. Probably not an ideal way to do this. I probably should have gotten washi tape, but I just don't use enough washi tape. It's never when I need it. It's never nearby. So, just gonna wing it. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna wing it. Hold on one second. I am gonna get some washi. I don't want to mess it up. I do want this card to look nice. So I think that's centered, right? As if you could answer me. That's funny. You can tell that I haven't done a lot of these videos, and it feels a little weird to be talking while I'm crafting. Feels like I'm talking to myself, which actually I probably am. I'm guessing not many people are going to view this, but that's okay. The whole point of stamp like, or craft like no one's watching, is to have a record of my crafting, not really to necessarily have folks watching. So I'm going to go through this a few times just to make sure that we cut through all the layers, because there are obviously 2 layers of this pattern paper. And what we end up with is a frame, like so. And then we have die cut 2 other pieces that we can use subsequently. And what's going to happen with these wedges, right now it doesn't look particularly interesting because the inner cardstock is just plain black, and so obviously that's not all that much fun. But if we were to put, well, first let's try this coordinating cardstock. Now these pieces, I didn't have quite enough to have a full width across, just a little bit. But if I put this in, I think that that looks pretty cute. Just giving a peek at the vegetation. My other option is to put in this sort of cardstock, and I don't know if I like this. Maybe it's just different enough that I don't like it. You know, I think overall, I think I would rather have leaves and vegetation. And there's 2 of these. There's the flowers as well. Yeah, I think it would look better if what was peeking through here was the green. It would be matching. And while not everything has to match all the time, I think in this instance it would be good. All right, so let's cut the other frame. Like I said, I'm going to go through a few times. And then we're going to cut this one as well. A slightly larger aperture here. You know, it's all eyeballing, right? And I hope I'm eyeballing it correctly, but we'll find out. The good news is once you do the die cutting, everything else is pretty quick. It comes together very quickly, this card. Okay. There you go. And these are, you know, sort of nice pieces that will be useful potentially for other projects. Okay, so that's it for die cutting for now. Well, forever for this card. And now it's just assembly. So I think for this, the inside of this card, I don't need anything on the inside because we're going to have the cat be the star, and the cat can be on the plain background and be just fine. So what we want to do is we want to take some tearaway tape, which I did have here, and I'm going to use the tearaway tape close to the valley fold here. Love this double-sided tape. I actually use a lot of 3M double-sided Scotch tape as well, but this tearaway tape is great because it's, you know, it's a little bit thinner, and so it fits. It's the perfect fit. And now that I have this here, I can decide whether I want the cat. I think I would probably like the kitty to be on a, to be slightly elevated. So I'm not going to put her in yet. But on this side, I want to locate the cardstock before I fold it. So as you can see, you're able to see some of this fold, but when the wedge stands up, you really actually don't see it. So what I'm going to do is, even though this isn't as big as the whole thing, I'm going to put it right next to the edge here, because this edge will mostly be covered and you're not going to be able to see it. So I am going to use the 3M Scotch tape for this. Doesn't need a lot because no one's really going to be doing anything with this other than glancing at it through the little frame there. So just like that, and then again, tearaway tape. That I'm going to put near the valley fold here. That's one wedge done. And then on this wedge, it's the opposite. So we're going to adhere the pattern paper closer to the center. Some more of the tearaway tape. We're almost done. Very close to being done. Okay. And I think I'd like to put the kitty here on some foam dots, or actually what would be really great is if we could take a piece of, this is just scrap that I found on my desk here, but that's okay. I'm going to use the same kind of wedge to pop up the kitty, and it's going to need some scoring, so I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, or yeah, 2 inches, 2.5, 3, 4, and I'm scoring it at 4.5, not because I need to, but because this strip is too long, so I'm going to cut it. So basically, I'm using a strip that's 1 inch by 4.5 inches, and it's scored at 1/2, 1, 2, 2.5, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Mountain Valley, and so basically what I've built is one of these little wedge support things, but I've built it for the center. I'm going to glue it together, and I'm going to put the kitty. I'm going to attach the kitty to this, if I can find the kitty. Here's the kitty. And so when the card pops open, the kitty will look as if it's floating in the background. Isn't that fun? Kind of like that. So we need just a little bit of tearaway tape for here. Where did my tearaway tape go? There it is. Now, if you were making this particular pattern paper is fairly thick. It's not quite as thick as this cardstock, but it's fairly thick. So I'm okay using the cardstock. But if you were using a thinner double-sided paper, I would probably use something, maybe a little, just use a scrap piece of the pattern paper, because if your cardstock is much bulkier than your paper, you risk the kitty being above your frame, and that would just look weird. Slightly below or at the same level is fine, but if it pops up above, then it's just weird. We want to make sure that we center her right in the frame. And there she is. That's so great. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's turning out better than I even thought it would. And then, again, just a little bit of tearaway tape on the back of the card here. I hope you guys like this card. I know it's a little hard to imagine what it's going to look like because I didn't show you my samples, but I didn't want to spoil the surprise for the no viewers who are watching this. And I could pop this up, but I don't want to make this card too bulky. So I think what I'm going to do is just take a couple of pieces of my 3M tape and just center it on the front, like so. Great. Fantastic. Okay, now, somewhere I had my card base, right? I had it out, I showed you where it was, and it's now disappeared. This happens to me all the time. Never mind, just found it. Okay, so for the final assembly, the way this is going to look is we're going to attach the wedges to the front of the card. Easy peasy, right? And there's going to be just a little bit of a gap. You can have a gap on the outside, or you can have a gap on the inside, or you can have it evenly distributed. I think I'm going to evenly distribute this gap. So on the back of my card here, you can use whatever glue, whatever adhesive you want to attach these, by the way. I know a lot of people like liquid glue. I'm not as big of a fan of liquid glue. I do prefer my Scotch tape, but honestly, whatever floats your boat, whatever you're most comfortable with and have the most trust in terms of holding everything together, it does not matter. Okay, and just a slight border here. And then we want to center this panel between the other two, like so. And there you go. A wedge 3-panel card. You can see how everything floats, and you can see that if you take just a piece of cardstock and press it down, it will fold pretty darn flat to go into an envelope. So it's very mail friendly, post office friendly. I don't like the occasion for sending this card, but I think the card turned out pretty nicely. I do enjoy this card. Now, I want to show you a couple of other cards that I made that were a little happier using this the wedge 3-panel card. They're slightly different only because the center is 3 inches instead of 3 1/4. This card, this is what I started with. And I measured, I wanted this to be 3 inches and 2 inches on each side. And I measured everything completely, but I also made it with the wedges being made out of cardstock and then covered with mats of pattern paper instead of making the wedges out of the pattern paper. And what ended up happening is this was just too bulky. And so you'll see here that I had a little bit of an overlap. It wasn't perfect. And as a result, because of the bulk of the cardstock and the paper, I used different paper to insert here. It was very, very time consuming and tedious. And I didn't even cut apertures here. I just placed the design on top. This is going to be a card that I'm going to hand somebody in person. I'm not going to try to mail this card. It would require too much extra postage, and it would have to be hand canceled to be safe. So I'm just going to hand this to somebody in person. But I do have my niece's birthday's coming up, and I needed a card for her, so I made this version. This was old, retired Stampin' Up! Designer Series paper, which is double-sided. Cupcakes in the front, cherries in the back, and you can see that I cut an aperture window, so you have the little peekaboo at the cherries in the back, and I still put the cupcakes in the front, happy birthday, and then the sentiment, happy birthday, with a cherry on top with a cupcake in the center. These wedge cards are so fun, and this is really going to be moving in flat. This, the wedge, I made slightly smaller. I don't know if you can see. Not quite the same as the outside, about half the size, and so it doesn't quite pop up to the top of the frame. So in this one, I just used, I didn't use a wedge at all, I just used foam tape. So, you know, different ways to use this card, but I just think it's a lovely design. Thank you, Anne, for bringing it to my attention. I enjoy it so much. I'm going to be making a ton of these cards in the future. I just know it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, you know, if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, please. If you want to see more videos like this, I'm a crafter. I will be posting more crafting videos. So just please subscribe, and you will be notified when I post a new video. I also post haul videos, and I post junk journaling, or at least I'm trying to post junk journaling videos. I'm new to junk journaling, so just join me. And in the meantime, enjoy your crafting. Bye!